Welcome techies. In this video we are going to build this color typing game using Python and Tkinter. To play the game, all you need to do is press enter and then make sure you type in the right colors: red, green. Oops, time is up. So once time is up, even if you get the right answer, your score will not get incremented. So you reset the game and then you start again. As you can see, reset changes everything back to the default. Alright, so I put this on 5 seconds because I don't want to spend time on the demo. You can increment it or increase it when you build yours as well. If you are watching my video for the first time, you might need to install this, which is what will make our app look that beautiful, or will make the UI that rich. So UI stands for user interface, and then if you don't have this installed before, you might not get something different from this as well. So that's it for the setup and the installation. Now let's get into the video. So the first thing we do is to set up our base window and import the required libraries, and then let's define some constants there. So the colors and the total time. So let's say what we have so far. We should get an empty window with the title. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so let's move on. Now the first thing we're going to create is an app frame. The reason why we are going to use an app frame is so that we can easily add spaces around all our widgets without adding spaces individually. Now we'll create a time and score frame to hold the time left and then the current score of the user. So now let's create our timer frame. Then we're going to give it a text of time left, which will initially hold total game time. And then we're going to put it to the left, and then we're going to add some padding on the X. So the same thing applies to the user score, and just that we put it on the right. Now let's define a label to hold the description of the text there. We're going to give it a font of Montserrat. So this might not work for you if you don't have that font installed. You can easily change that to Arial to make that work for you. And then for the text color, you can make it whatever you want. And then just add some padding on the X and the Y to make sure we have spaces around that. Now let's define our changing text. This is the text will keep changing, which is the main part of the game. Now we're going to add a couple more widgets here. The user input, which would give a width of 300 and height of 50. So it's important to know that these numbers are not magic numbers. They're numbers you might have to try, like do a little bit of trial and error to get what you want. So right, so what our label there to tell the user to start the game. I think it's good for the user experience. And then we're going to add a reset button there so that whenever a user is done with the game, they can reset. Cool, that's all we have so far before we move on to the logic. And yeah, this looks good, just that it's not yet functional. So if you press enter, you click the button, nothing happens. So let's work on that. So we're able to handle the situation whenever a user presses enter, we use what we call event binding in Tkinter. So to do that, we're going to bind a return event to the user input. So return means whenever a user presses enter. I'm going to leave a link in the description below to where you can see a list of events and what they mean. So now let's define a function called start game, which will be triggered whenever we press enter on our inputs. Okay, so whenever we start the game, what's the first thing that happens? Okay, so the first thing that happens is you start your timer, and then so let's define a function for that and let's add that down there. And same thing is when you start a timer, it also changes the text there. So whenever a user presses enter, it changes the text. Even after the game has started, it also changes the text. So we're going to see how we're going to handle the situations. So while all of this will happen, we just need a way to keep track of our time. All right. So we're going to create a variable called time left, and that's going to be initially the total game time. Okay. Oh yeah, that's an error. Then let me remove that. To be able to manage the time, you have to make the time left global here. There are other different ways we could do this. I'm also going to leave a second version to this code in the description below. So we're going to make it global so we can also manipulate it from in here. So this is how the timer is going to work. If time left is greater than 0, what this condition will do is, as we're deducting from every second, we want to make sure user still has time left for us to keep the countdown going. And then we're going to configure or update our timer countdown on the app. Then this is where the magic happens. Then we're going to use what we call root.after. So after every 1 second, this function is going to recall itself. It looks a bit like recursion. So whenever 1 second passes, it calls the function again, and then it checks if the time left is still greater than 0. And then if it is, we subtract 1, and then we update the timer on the app, and then we call this function again till when the time left gets to 0, and then when it gets to 0, we update that time as to say time up and change the color to red so the user notices that time is up. Okay, so let's see how that works and see if we have something working so far. And yeah, let's drag that in. Yeah, okay, I think we have an issue there. So this error is because we are using a bind event, and by default that returns an argument to the whatever function you pass there, an event argument. So we're going to pass that in there. Now our app should work. Okay. Now when we press enter, you should see the timer run down. But did you notice that? Let me run the game again. And you see that when we press the timer, if you press it multiple times, then the time runs so fast. So that's a bug. And then let's see where the error is coming from. Now the issue with this is whenever we press enter, this start game function is triggered and it triggers our run timer. So to be able to handle this, we're going to use a condition here. And that condition is going to state that if our time left is still the same thing as our total game time, which means our game is yet to start. So that's the only time we should be able to run our timer. And then that, okay, so now this should work as expected. It should fix the issue. Now, no matter the amount of time to present, our time left still runs normal, as you can see. That's it with the timer. Now let's move on to making sure the user, by counting the scores and making sure the user is typing the right things in. So to do that, you might need a variable here to keep track of our user score, and then we're going to make it global here because we're going to be modifying it as time goes on. The first thing we want to make sure of is before we check if our user is correct, we want to make sure we still have time left. So we're going to use a condition there for that. If time left is greater than 0, and then we're going to get the user's input and compare it against our current color. So we need to create a variable to also hold our current color. We're going to call it current color, and initially it's going to be a random color from our list of colors. Then we're going to compare that. So if it's correct, then we're going to increment our user score by 1, and then we're going to update it on the app. Okay, that looks good. And then once we update it, we're just going to clear the input box, and then let's add greater than or equal to 0 there, so that even when the timer is on 0, user can quickly catch a score there. Well, let's see how that plays on down the road. Now, so inside our change text function, first thing we'll do to change our text is get another random color. Of course, we're going to be modifying the color here, so we need to make it global. Now, once we make it global, we want to update our text. And then remember, this is how the game works. It's going to show a text. To be able to get the right answer, you need to press the color of the text. We're trying to create a mismatch between the color of the text and then what the actual text is. So for example, when you see red, the color might be yellow, and you might need to press yellow. So what we're going to do is we're going to get another random color for the text. So sometimes this might be the same thing with the actual color, and that might be locked for whoever is typing at that moment. So we're going to configure our text color to be our current color, which will be the correct answer. And then, yeah, I think that should work as expected. Let's save that. Okay, so let's see what we have so far. Let's drag that in, and so once we press enter, the color changes and the time countdown starts. And then this is working fine. This is working well. Yeah, that works fine. All right. So there's something left. We have not made our reset button functional. So whenever a game ends, we don't need to close it before we start a new game. So we're going to add a callback function to our reset button, and then we're going to call it reset game. Now let's define that function up here. We're going to say reset game, and then what we want to do here is just to reset all our values back. So we need to make some of this global here, time left, the score, so we can update that. When we reset, we want to change our time left back to the total time game, and no, not trading. And then we also want to update our score to be 0. All right, so that, and then we're going to update that on the app itself. That should, let me check what I saved that as. The name, there you are. So I'm going to copy that and then just paste it here. Okay, so we're going to do time left. What's it called again? Timer, yeah. Sorry about that. To timer.configure. Then we're going to paste that in. Okay, so it's just time left. Well, it's the same thing anyway. You can use anyone over there. And then for the score, I think it's user score. Yeah. So we're going to configure that as well. And then we're just going to change the score to 0. So we're going to replace that. Let me confirm. Yeah, 0 with a space before that. So we're going to change that to score as well. And minus, just delete that here. So let's see how that works now. So I press enter and play a short game. Let's see what we have. So oh, my typing is not so good. Let me run that again. Okay, just make sure everything works fine. We're going to start, and then white, violet. Okay, so whenever I reset the game, now you notice the flaw here. The game resets even when the game has not ended. So we want to make some changes here to make sure we can only reset the game when the game has ended. So we can do that by disabling the button whenever we start the game. So we're going to do reset button dot configure. Then we're going to change the state to disabled. So this your user cannot reset the game while they are playing it. I just think it would be better that way. and then whenever the time runs out, we're going to enable the button back. So we're going to change the state to normal for that. All right, so that should work fine. Let's see what we have so far. I'm going to run that again, and let's drag that in. So once we start the game, user can reset. Okay, as you can see, until the game has ended. Oh, did you see that? I think that's a bug. Oh, this. Let me try that again. Oh, so I think we have an issue there. You keep counting scores after the game has ended. All right, so we're going to fix that, but at least our reset button works. Oh my goodness. Okay, so if I reset the score, time left changes, everything changes, and even the color doesn't change back. So that's a bug we'll have to fix now. And I think that bug is from where we had that 0 greater than or equals to 0 issue. But before that, let's change this text color to white whenever we reset, and that should fix that issue we reset. So yeah, so I think this is where the issue is from. We need to remove the equals to sign. So this should fix the issue. That happens whenever our score is at 0. Let's run that. Okay, go and so on and so on. So when it gets to 0, yeah, so our app works fine right now. That's resolved. Cool. And then we can reset the game. Once we start the game, the reset button gets disabled. So we have our app working fine now. You can change your time, your countdown. You can increase the total game time if you want, probably to 30 seconds, so you can enjoy the game. That's it with the video, guys. I do have a couple of things in mind I think you guys can work on to make this even better. So the first thing is adding the i-score feature. So you can just add i-score here, a label here that says i-score, and then keep incrementing it anytime a user gets a new i-score. So to do that, you can use store your i-score in a file, or even store it in your program. But if you store it in a file, it means anytime you open this program, your i-score will never be lost, which I think is better to do. I'll leave a link in the description below to how you can learn on how to write and read from files. And also another thing you can improve on is adding different levels of difficulty. So anytime a user gets a new i-score, you reduce the total time. So let's say you start from 30 seconds, the user gets a new i-score, you reduce it to 25 seconds, reduce it to 20 seconds. You see the user can still pass their score even in a short time. So that would help to increase the efficiency of the game to help you improve your speed. I think that would be nice actually. So that's it, guys. Thanks for watching if you did, and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and absolutely subscribe not to miss out on my next video. And I will see you guys. Peace.